Oh, hey, Leslie.
Oh, hey, Philip.
What are you doing?
I'm getting ready for literacy circles. I was thinking we all have books and we read them for several reasons. For entertaining purposes, to gather information, to learn about a specific subject, or to accomplish an assigned task. Literacy circles is something that we have been practicing in our classroom.
But what is literacy circles?
Well, simply put, is a group of students leading book discussions. Through this approach, we target vital 21st century skills, such as collaboration, communication, creativity, and connected learning skills.
That's a lot of skills for the 21st century.
Well, there are only 4, and you're going to need them a lot later in life, like in college or at your job. At your job, you're going to have to talk with your coworkers and reason things out. That's communication. You're also going to have to learn new things from them. That's connected learning skills. And you're also going to have to be creative with your ideas. Be unique. And your coworkers are also going to help you make those ideas better.
Well, I'm still kind of confused.
Why don't I show you them in action?
Okay, but, well, I guess it couldn't hurt.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Mike. This is Revueltas class. I am going to present you literacy circles. As you see here, every member in our classroom has a specific role, like the vocabulary enricher. What the vocabulary enricher does is give vocabulary words to increase your vocabulary and tells you words that you don't know. Next is the literary luminary. What it does is give passages that have figurative speech, such as personification, metaphors, and similes, stuff like that. And then next is the discussion director. What the discussion director does is ask you questions to increase your comprehension. Last but not least, the most important one is the checker. What the checker does is checks everyone's work to see if they have participated, such as if someone of their group is vocabulary literature, they check if they have hard tier 3 words to see if they are doing good in their literacy circles group.
Please turn to page 156. And he was thinking about Lena, whom he hadn't seen for several days. He wondered where she was. When he came to the door, he reached absently for the knob, and what he felt startled him so much that he snatched his hand back as if he'd been stung. He felt again carefully. There was a key in the lock. For a long moment, June stood as still as a statue. Then he took hold of the doorknob and turned it. Very slowly he pushed on the door. It swung inward without a sound. He opened it only a few inches, just enough to peer around the edge. What he saw made him gasp. There was no road or passage or stairway behind the door. There was a brightly lit room, whose size he could not guess at because it was so crowded with things. On all sides were crates and boxes, sacks and bundles and packages. There were mounds of cans, heaps of clothes, rows of jars and bottles, stacks of light-bulb packages. Piles rose to the low ceiling and leaned against the walls, blocking all but a small space in the center. In that small space, a little living room had been set up. There was a greenish rug, and on the rug an armchair and a table. On the table were dishes smeared with the remains of food, and in the armchair facing June was a great blob of a person whose head was flopped backwards, so that all June could see of it was an upthrust chin. What do you think is some of the motives behind finding the food for the city?
Some of the motives is that person was greedy because in the city, the food was burning out and then the lights were flickering, and that person had lots of food that other people didn't have. So maybe he thought that if the city was collapsing, he would have to think ahead. So maybe he went to stores gathering supplies. So he was thinking about himself, not others.
I think that some of the motives are that I agree with Abby because on the book he the mayor doesn't he doesn't want to share the stuff because if he shares it he's gonna run out of it and then he might die.
I agree with Abby because the mayor is being selfish, just thinking of himself, getting all the food for him to survive, not the rest of the city. He doesn't care if the city survives. He cares about himself. If I survive, okay. If the city doesn't, okay.
I agree with Abby because he's trying to be selfish. He doesn't want anyone from the city to have the food because since the city's all torn down, he thinks that everyone's gonna die and that if he takes the food, no one can eat, so they would all die and he could survive for a long amount of time.
So, like, he was just thinking for himself, not the city.
He's selfish.
Okay, please say to page 138, paragraph 1. There her fingers tangled in the long wisp of Granny's hair. She pressed a finger against the side of Granny's throat to feel for her pulse, as the doctor had shown her. It was fluttering, like a moth that has hurt itself and is flapping in crooked circles. Why did the author use the phrase fluttery like a moth that has hurt itself and is flapping in crooked circles?
To help the reader understand how the author was comparing how a hurt moth was feeling to the heartbeat of her granny.
To help the reader understand that Granny's heartbeat was low or was weak, like a hurt moth, because usually when a moth is hurt, they're just flying around circles and they're all weak.
That kind of like flapping kind of slow since they're hurt.
Yeah.
I agree with Kimberly because they're trying to compare the moth to how her grandmother is dying, and that when a moth, its wing is broken, it keeps on fluttering until the point that it's dead, and it's trying to compare her heartbeat to how the moth is weak.
Turn to page 181, paragraph 3. They went down the long stairway and out into the main tunnel where the river thundered alongside the path, its dark surface strewn with flecks of light. Do you guys know what the word strewn means?
Maybe it means like spread out, because when the sun beams light down at water, it doesn't usually just stay at one area. It kind of like spreads out, like putting freckles all over the water.
I agree with Abby because usually when the sun bounces onto the water, you could see the light spreading apart in the water.
What I think June means is to lighten up, because since the surface is dark and it says flecks of light, maybe the sun is lighting up the dark surface of the river.
The definition is to let fall particles. Do you guys know a synonym for it?
Maybe a synonym could also be like spread out, since like when something falls, it just doesn't stay in one area. It kind of like spreads out.
Or since the meaning is particles, then it could mean that break apart. Like when you drop something on the floor, it doesn't just stay in one place, it spreads out.
I agree with Gabriel and Abby, but in other words, be all over the place.
The synonym is scatter.
I as checker have to give feedback. Discussion director, your question was tier 3 thought-provoking. Literary luminary, your passage helped us understand more about the main character. Vocabulary Richard, your word was tier 3 because it could be in many subjects of school. Now I'm going to write the report to give it to the teacher.
So Philip, what did you learn about literacy circles today?
Well, today I learned that you can pick your own book, you can write down any questions or vocabulary words that you don't understand. You can make tests so you can learn those vocabulary words for the rest of your life. And depending on the question someone asks, you can learn a thing or two about the author. And the best thing about it is that no one is fooling around. Everyone has a job and everyone is helping the group cooperate.
So what do you think is the most important role?
Well, I think it's all important because each member helps each other member helps them increase the comprehension.
So are you ready to join literacy circles?
I'm more than ready.
We hope you enjoyed our presentation.